The right to work showdown gets put off to another day. Unions promise a court challenge to pension reforms. And the State Parole Board is getting back its power to keep violent inmates behind bars. Coming up in the Cloakroom. Some days you win, some days you lose, and some days it rains. I'm Grant Bosse, and welcome into the Cloakroom. Unions and their legislative supporters thought they were going to win a big battle in the New Hampshire House this week, as right-to-work supporters looked to be short of the two-thirds vote they needed to override a veto from Governor John Lynch. But House Speaker Bill O'Brien opted to avoid a fight he wasn't going to win, holding on to the governor's veto message to House Bill 474 and delaying the override vote indefinitely. AFL-CIO President Mark McKenzie was outraged. The New Hampshire union head spoke to reporters outside O'Brien's office after the House adjourned without taking action on the bill.
This House is not about politics. This House is about policy. They should not be using this as an opportunity to move an ideological agenda in the state capitol while the business of the state of New Hampshire goes on the back burner. We've got budgets to deal with, we've got pension issues to deal with, we've got health care issues to deal with, and the right to work has taken up too much time of this House. The people of this state do not want this legislation, and we believe that that's where the vote is going to be in the end. Let's have a vote. I don't know what the Speaker is thinking. I don't know how many more arms he thinks he's going to twist in the process of this. It is time to vote on the right to work bill and put this issue behind us.
Meanwhile, O'Brien says he's going to wait until the time is right to restart the right to work debate.
Sure, this is the point where we would have liked to have done it, but I think at this point what we'll do is let the issue develop, and what I didn't realize before is how that we are going to get to the point where support was coming in just as of yesterday from the business community, and I really want to have a chance to let the caucus digest that and understand the importance of that. So to the extent that I couldn't foresee the future and when support would be coming in, yeah, I couldn't, but it's so important. I think it's we should let members consider that.
So it sounds to me as if on any given House session day, you may decide that that's the time.
And it may well be, in any given House session day, it may well be that we have the time, we have the numbers present, and we have our arguments lined up on both sides so that we can fully consider and have a good, healthy debate on right to work.
I mean, do you think this, how do you think this comports with your many repeated claims about trying to run the most transparent House possible?
Perfectly.
Well, given what you've just said, technically you have until you reconvene next January, correct?
I believe it is until the second half of the session begins.
So you could come in any time this fall. I mean, the only times you're really scheduled to come in June 1st, and then conference committee appointments, and then the last day. So other than that, wouldn't it be a called day for veto special?
It may be following what has been more traditional approach, because you're right, we're running out of some session days where we actually have to get some legislation through, like the budget and pension reform and some constitutional amendments. It may well be that we don't have time to do it, and then we'll have to set down a specific veto day. But we'll see how it goes. I think the argument and support from our perspective on this, particularly with the entire business community coming out now and supporting it, I think is indicating that, you know, we like what we see, and we like the support that's developing, and we'd like to bring us forward as soon as we can.
To sum up your emotions today, how are you feeling right now?
Well, I'm feeling pretty good. I really am. You know, we have a very tight caucus. You know, I appreciate the support of the caucus when the union bosses directed that there be a disruption in the House floor, and we know the tactics, and there's a great deal of support there, and so I'm feeling good about that. We've seen it before, we'll see it again. That's the way they operate.
I imagine.
While right-to-work opponents were left fuming at the delay, such tactics are commonplace in the New Hampshire House. As we reported this week at New Hampshire Watchdog, House speakers have almost unlimited discretion to schedule veto override votes at any time. Former Republican House Speaker Donna Sitek waited until December of 2001 to take up Governor Jeanne Shaheen's vetoes from the previous summer. And Democratic Speaker Terry Norelli last year routinely put off veto showdowns for 2 or 3 months in the last session. But Dave Lang, president of the Professional Firefighters of New Hampshire, says the House is ready to vote now to sustain Lynch's veto. We're joined now in the cloakroom by Dave Lang. He's president of the Professional Firefighters of New Hampshire, and probably a frustrating day in the New Hampshire House, as it looked like the House didn't have the votes to override a veto of right to work. Turns out they never got the chance.
Well, Grant, tell me what day in this House is not frustrating. Rain or shine, it seems to be something. Whether it's collective bargaining, whether it's right to work, whether it's pensions, it seems as though the process sometimes gets in the way. I think it's totally unfortunate and totally inappropriate to put in the calendar and announce that there's going to be a vote on the governor's veto. Have a highly attended House, which was here today, some 373 House members. 3 vacancies is 376 members. It doesn't get any fuller than that. There's only 400 members in this House. And for someone to wait and to stall off until a lower attendance goes so that we can possibly play a political trick is not New Hampshire. New Hampshire is better than that. In New Hampshire, the voters expect better than that. I just wonder, Grant, how long New Hampshire voters are going to continue to tolerate this.
Moving from the process of when the veto gets voted on to the issue itself, why shouldn't a worker take a job regardless of whether they join the union or not? Why should union membership be a condition of employment, whether it's for state government or for a private sector job?
One of the great spins and great fallacies of this whole discussion is the fact that it's forced unionism. The fact of the matter is it's illegal to force anyone to join a union. It's illegal to force anyone to join a church or to join the NRA. The fact of the matter is that the state of New Hampshire on the public sector side recognizes labor unions to be the exclusive bargaining agent for certain positions. Therefore, there's a cost associated with that. There's a cost to representation. Matter of fact, there's a thing out there called the duty of fair representation. That means that Dave Lang, as the president, has to provide representation whether he likes a union member or he doesn't, whether he likes her or he doesn't, whether he thinks she is right or wrong. I'm bound by representing that person. There's a cost associated with that. This does nothing more than to ensure that that cost is paid for. Now, with that said, what they think this is about, because of an outside firm or a national agenda, they think this is about destroying labor unions to the point that they will no longer be involved in politics or involved in party politics. You know, the firefighters are a bipartisan organization. Grant, as you well know, we've supported Republicans and we've supported Democrats. A lot of our members are Republicans. We have members that run for office. We have several Republicans up here right now in the House. We had several Republicans that have run for Senate. Terry Paffel, one of them, has run for Senate, a strong Republican, conservative Republican. This is not a Democratic or Republican issue. This is an issue that's bad for New Hampshire.
Unions are fighting this legislature on several fronts, along with the budget and the right to work vote. Lang is also leading opposition to changes to the state's retirement system. This week, House and Senate negotiators agreed to exempt vested employees with at least 10 years on the job from many of the bill's provisions. But Lang argues the legislature can't touch pension benefits for any current state or local workers.
What the conference committee needs to focus on is passing a prospective law that will do one thing, which is what its stated goal is. Any of the elected officials that have run have wanted to lower employer contributions. You have to do it prospectively. That means you need to do it for new hires. Any changes for those that are in the system, and this is not Dave Lang talking, this is the Supreme Court justices. They've already ruled on this issue. You cannot change the benefits. You cannot cut the benefits. You cannot charge more for the benefits for anyone that gets off probation, becomes a permanent employee. What the conference committee in the House and the Senate is doing is trying to use a term of art known as vesting, anyone with less than 10 years. The problem is we've spent all this time, it's hinged on the state budget. If it goes to court and if it's found unconstitutional, we now have to come into special session because there's going to be a $125 or $150 million hole in the budget. That's not good governing. Good governing says that you ought to think about the Constitution of the state of New Hampshire. You ought to think about what the ramifications are of passing such a law like this. Second of all, the system is not bankrupt. The system is not insolvent. In House Bill 653 in 2008, we went to great strengths and great strides to choose a funding methodology that would accurately fund and pay-as-you-go system. We think that's important. We think it's already been done, that all that we're seeing now is we're seeing a way in which to take what employers asked for, and they asked for this transgenerational shift of costs from the pension system from one generation to this one. They asked for it in the 90s. Now we're seeing the House and the Senate trying to put those costs not back on the employers where they belong, but through benefit cuts and through cost increases to employees.
If the costs can't be the $3.7 billion hole can't be filled on current employees. Changes don't take effect for 10, maybe 20 years. That means employers pay more. Doesn't that just mean local property tax payers pay more?
No, matter of fact, there's a 30-year plan. We spread the $3.7 billion over a 30-year time horizon. We have 27 more years to go in which we will be at 100% funded. Now, the more the market does better and the higher returns are, when it's over and above the 8.5% assumed rate of return, the faster that hole gets filled. But if that was the case, there are senators and state reps that have crisscrossed this state, making the unfunded liability, or that $3.7 billion hole, the boogeyman. Well, the trustees just voted. Senator Bradley, Trustee Bradley, made a motion to change the assumptions of the pension system, which added another $500 million. That's right, Grant. $500 million was added to the unfunded liability. We went from $3.7 billion to $4.2 billion based on a vote that was put forward by Senator Bradley.
That was reflecting the fact that returns haven't met that 8.5% return that they're expecting.
That's not true. The returns have met the 8.5% over the time horizon. You can point to 3 specific years, right after September 11, 2001, and in 2008, 2009, where we lost money. Everyone lost money in the stock market. But here's the fact. In that 10-year period, $5.5 billion went into the system. $5.5 billion. $3.7 billion was paid out. That left a strong balance. That's with 2 strong dips in the market. That's not insolvency. That's not bankruptcy. That's not meeting the target.
Dave Lang from the Professional Firefighters of New Hampshire, thanks for joining us in the cloakroom.
Thanks, Grant. Have a great day.
Also this week, the House approved changes to the state's parole system, repealing a key section of last year's controversial Senate Bill 500, which mandated the early release of all New Hampshire inmates at least 9 months before the end of their maximum sentences. Many SB 500 supporters thought the bill only applied to nonviolent inmates and weren't surprised when murderers and rapists were let out of jail last year over the objections of the Adult Parole Board. SB 52 restores the Parole Board's discretion over violent offenders, which O'Brien hopes will prevent any more surprises.
I see some of these headlines that surprise me. I got to tell you that I can't guarantee anybody that, at least of all myself. But I think this is a great bill, and I think it will provide some measure of additional safety to the people of New Hampshire.
House Majority Leader D.J. Betancourt acknowledges that restoring the Parole Board's authority may lead to higher prison costs, but he says it's worth the price.
It was rushed through. It was done right at the deadline, and there wasn't a full consideration for all of the potential consequences, unintended consequences. The committee in both the House and the Senate have made reform of Senate Bill 500 a priority, and they have done excellent work. This has been a session-long progression of making sure that the fix is the right fix so that we won't have those kinds of problems. We need to make sure that our communities are safe from dangerous people, and you know, having that discretion in place is very, very important.
Differences between the House and Senate versions of SB 52 need to be hammered out. Governor John Lynch was a strong supporter of SB 500, but has since acknowledged the need to tweak the law. Turning now to a New Hampshire Watchdog poll, we asked you if you support keeping the New Hampshire Rail Transit Authority as it is, repealing it entirely, or a Senate compromise that would strip the authority of much of its authority. The results show that our readers support the governor and would leave the Rail Transit Authority as it is. That'll do it for now. Be sure to vote on our next New Hampshire Watchdog poll at newhampshirewatchdog.org, and we'll see you next week right here in the Cloakroom. For the Josiah Bartlett Center for Public Policy, I'm Grant Bosse. Thanks for watching.